Let's bring in New York Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Congresswoman, in all of this, you've got federal workers, you've got food assistance programs, you've got Americans, families that are in the middle of week 4 and their uncertainty and their concern is growing. What do you say to them?
Yeah, this is absurd. We watched the No Kings protest, a bunch of aging hippies riding nude on bicycles, dressing up and, an early Halloween, looking absurd while we have the future at stake. And all these programs, our military, our readiness are at risk. As you alluded to in your previous comments, we have more than 80% of our NASA and weather station, all those different important elements of our satellites in space, our space program. That's the future of our country in everything, whether it's intelligence, dealing with national defense. The satellites are critical. Those things are all compromised when we have these important scientists and leaders of tomorrow at home. These are people who are the best of the best, brilliant scientists, space engineers, all kinds of people making sure we're ahead of China and Russia. And remember something, we had a hypersonic missile go around the Earth before we realized it was happening, because China is either meeting or exceeding us in a lot of these fields. We have to win and we have to dominate. While the Democrats sit and do these silly marches, the American people are suffering. Our security, as you described, the people at home are not being able to pay their bills. This is absurd, with no real mission other than to make sure that illegal immigrants continue to get their health care. I mean, that's really what they're talking about. They're talking about more fraud, abuse, and waste in the system and a broken down Obamacare that isn't working.
Well, I think as this, obviously, shutdowns are unpopular, and the messaging has been a big, point. The Republicans are saying this is the Schumer shutdown, and that seems to be overall landing. But then you've got some in your conference, like Congressman Kevin Kiley from California, who is now being more and more vocal and saying, and maybe this is because of what he's facing in his own district with redistricting in California, but they're coming out and saying, okay, this is ridiculous. We've got to get back to the negotiating table with the Democrats. Are you finding that more and more in your party are saying now that there's got to be some solution made now? We can't wait for week 5.
Look, I think Kevin Kiley is a terrific leader in California. They're so lucky to have him. I know what it's like to come from a very blue state. That's where I come from. But nothing has failed more triumphantly than Obamacare, and especially in the state of New York, where we're spending over $230 million taxpayer dollars on the so-called essential plan, and that's laundering federal money in to make sure that we cover people who aren't eligible. We're hurting our seniors, we're hurting our veterans, we're hurting our own taxpayers. We're looking at the horrible potential of a Marxist, communist, anti-Semite who's talking about government running grocery stores, government taking over the means of production, huge tax increases to one of the highest tax state right now in the nation, and pulling and really just causing a greater demise in New York. This is a real serious issue. I know Kevin faces redistricting. He also has a tough situation in California. But right now is not the time to let the Democrats cause even more harm to the American people. Put the government back open. 6 or 7 senators have to go in and just vote to keep it open. It doesn't matter if it's Chuck Schumer. These are the people, they're leaders from New York. Remember, the whole Democrat Party in the federal government come from New York. Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, New York City Democrats who served in the state legislature. They're not leaders. They come from a situation where they've always dominated and had control over our state, and they also never had any pushback from anyone credible. All the media gave them fawning praise their whole life. This is a tough situation, but California is in a similar spot. We have to hold strong on this, or we're going to see even worse conditions. Let's get the government back open. Let's talk about what we can do to possibly protect this situation with some of the more vulnerable people. But the vulnerable people are the ones that are getting hurt right now. I know what it's like to be in a swing district. I don't have as swingy a district. This is a tough situation for especially our vulnerable members, our marginal members. But holding strong is what's going to keep their base, and it's what's going to keep us going in the end. And I do think that you're going to need to have some kind of reduction of this fraud, abuse, and waste, or we're going to continue to have this huge growth in debt and deficits. When we're looking at bringing in $5 trillion a year And that 5 trillion is record numbers of money coming in. We've never had this much revenue coming into the federal government, and yet we're still spending 7 trillion on fraud, abuse, and wasteful programs that the Democrats instituted mostly during COVID. What are we going to do to stop that trend, and while still streamlining and making sure we're emphasizing the key industries and the key areas where we need to be advanced?
No,
I also think,
agree
Cheryl,
with
one
you.
of the things that the Democrats are doing, they're trying to hurt the big, beautiful bill. They're trying to make it not work.
Right.
It will work if we could only get back to work.
Right. You said something, I want to pick up on this because you mentioned Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. You know, you've got somebody in the New York City Council that might be kind of eyeing Jeffries' seat right now, that vulnerability in the midterms. There's been a lot of talk whether or not AOC is going to primary Chuck Schumer. We shall see. She laughed it off when she was asked about it. But let's talk about New York City. And we're just 2 weeks away from Election Day. And there's this new bombshell poll that showed trouble for Zohran Mamdani if it came down to Andrew Cuomo and Zohran Mamdani only. That's a dead heat. But Curtis Lewa would have to drop out. You and I have talked about this before, Congresswoman. He was on with Maria yesterday. Curtis Lewa came on. He said, I'm not leaving. I'm not dropping out. But to your point, we are now at a make-or-break moment for the city of New York. And to your point, the state, the finances of the state really kind of do depend on still New York City.
You know, this is a tough situation. I'm not an Andrew Cuomo fan. I railed against him when I served in the state legislature, continue to. He caused many of the problems that we're seeing right now. He created the green light law that prohibited divulging information about illegal immigrants in our communities, giving licenses to illegals. He created a lot of the problems that are plaguing New York State and New York City right now. But when you look at the choice, look, I love Curtis Lewa, as you said, he's great, but where are you going in New York City with Republicans right now? We are not going to turn the New York City electorate around in 2 weeks to get Republicans to do something. So I'm not going to say I'm going to support Andrew Cuomo, but I think whatever we can do to get behind one candidate who can win, we've got to do that, because this Mamdani thing is real. These people, these people have a mission, and they're going to carry it out. No matter how much that he tries to use his snake oil salesmanship skills to go to the Jewish community and go to people and say, hey, yeah, we're going to be fine, wink, wink. That is not what he's planning. These people are revolutionary. They're talking about taking over our country. And I think that right now, if you can work with someone like Andrew Cuomo or Curtis Lewa, you know, that's what you have to do. You have to have a Machiavellian view of this. Who can you get to do the right thing in New York with political pressure? I don't think you can do that with Mamdani. I think he's an ideologue, and I think he's got lots of outside money behind him that is going to destroy New York City.
He does. He does. Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, all eyes are on it. Thank you so much.